If you're looking for a quick side hustle or easy money, then this video isn't for you. Rent to service accommodation works. I've built it, I teach it. I see people succeed with this business every single month, but it only works for those who treat this like a business from day one. If you're serious about building something with controlled income, not financial freedom and passive income fantasies, then this will make a lot of sense to you. So by the end of this video, you will know exactly how service accommodation actually works, why capable people still get stuck with this business, and what I would do differently if I was to start all over again. So let's strip this absolutely back to basics. Rent to service accommodation means you're going to rent a landlord's property on a guaranteed rent basis. You control the property and then you rent it out using creative strategies such as service accommodation model, which is Airbnb and Booking.com is what we traditionally know it as. So you're going to operate it as a short-term accommodation. And then the bit you keep is the difference between the rent and the revenue. It's actually quite simple. What people confuse this business with is this isn't technically property investing. This is property controlling. You're going into the operations business. So if you don't want to run a business where you're running processes, power teams, you're managing your standards, you're operating under pressure, you need to make decisions quickly, then this will expose you quite quickly. The reason why people love this business model is because it requires a lot less capital than buying your own property. Buying your own property might require north of £40,000. This requires less than 10, can be less than 5, to then profit £1,000 north per month. And it's a very simple business model, only when you understand it. You're going to cash flow a lot faster because there's no mortgages involved. There's no solicitors involved. You're flexible in terms of where you want to invest. It's a very scalable business model. And that's why most people kind of underestimate this as well, because they're thinking that the barrier to entry is a lot lower, so the responsibility must be a lot lower. It's absolutely not the case. It's shifting the responsibility from the bank to you. You have to make this work. So if you're serious about this, you need to see this as a list of business functions. So you're going to need to reach out to landlords consistently. Then negotiating on rent that actually works. Sometimes that does require heavy negotiation skills. Then it's all about aligning the contracts and structuring that correctly, getting the compliance and the right insurances in place, then getting the council on board so that's done correctly. Then it's all the setup costs. Then you've got the pricing and yield management. Then you've got cleaning, maintenance and guest experience, and then you should have automations and systems that don't require you 24/7. And if one of those things break, the whole thing breaks. This is where I see a lot of people fail as well. You know, overpaying rent just to get their first deal. They're just tired of looking. They just want that first deal. Then you're going into this emotionally, not based on data. That is where the majority of people new to this business fail. I see it myself. I'm teaching my mentees that I'm working with on a one-to-one level. They get too involved emotionally. They just want their first deal. They've got the training. They know what they're looking for. Yet when they're so excited about a deal and I say that doesn't work, it doesn't stack, it won't stack, the data isn't there, there's no demand, they come crushing down. But that's what people need. They need that reassurance, that mentor. Imagine taking on that property, you investing thousands of pounds to get it live and then it doesn't get booked. That's a worse feeling than a mentor saying that doesn't work. But a lot of people still go down that road. A lot of people mentor. Another one is they guess the nightly rate instead of figuring out the actual demand in that area. What can you command on a nightly basis? You need to look at the data. Another rare pitfall is running units where everything runs perfectly, because then that sets an expectation in your mind that every other property is going to run perfectly. Copying contracts as opposed to really understanding liability and understanding break clauses, and they're just copying one contract to the next property to the next to the next to the next, which will eventually loop back around and bite you in the ass. Another one is ignoring councils until it's too late. You have to follow the process. Councils need to be notified about the use of the property. Another pitfall is doing everything in the business until they start to resent the business and then evaluate that it didn't work. They want to maximize their profit margins because they didn't do all of the above. They have to do everything, including the cleaning, to just recoup as much money as possible. And then they just end up resenting the business and then they quit. And then they blame the business model. It doesn't work. So they are execution problems. It's not lack of intelligence on the operator. It's the execution and the process behind that. And the reason why people fail is because it doesn't instantly just go dangerous. This is dangerous. This is going to fail. It's the kind of the routine they get themselves into. And months go by and they start to slow down and then they make tweaks and then they're going off process, and that's when small kind of mistakes start to compound. So let's talk about numbers, because people love numbers, especially those that are serious about this business. Let's go with one of my latest deals, okay, the bungalow. So your typical costs are you're going to have rent, you're going to have bills. We're going to have total furnishing. We're going to have staff, contractors. So the rent on the bungalow is $1,600. The bills I'm allocating $600 a month because I've got a hot tub as well. Furnishing the whole place with the hot tub, all of the furniture, which I sourced some secondhand using Facebook Marketplace. I spent, I think it was $8,600. Then I spent £1,000 on contractors. So these are the costs, but the rent I didn't pay until the second month. The bills are obviously going to be per month. The setup costs was $9,600. This is going to profit me £2,000 a month. That's based on the data and the due diligence that I've done using comparables, and my property is better than the comparables. So how do you work out the profit of the property? So we use property market intel. It's like a data analysis of areas, property types, based on comparables of Airbnbs operating in your area. So it collects the data of these properties for the last 3 years. So it's a very good kind of average tool that we use, but we don't rely on it. Back it up with analyzing the properties on Airbnb and booking.com and using Google Maps, everywhere. You need to reassure yourself as much as physically possible that the property you're going to take on is going to work. There's no way I would invest $9,000 into a property with the hope it would work. So everything comes into play. The data, the location, the type of client that will be booking there, how you furnish it, depending on the type of client that's staying in there. Also, with getting a new property live, it takes time. Unless you've got contractors waiting for a property to go live and they're gonna go straight in. If you are going down the market of this is the first time you're doing it, or this is a brand new area and you haven't got a contractor in place ready to be slotted into this property, then stabilization takes time. Building up the review base, it will take its time to pick up. Okay, so the first month might be a bit slow, but when you start to get traction and the bookings are coming in and the reviews are piling up, the platforms notice that. They read the reviews, they obviously want you to do well, and then you become guest favorite, you become super host, and you're just getting booked and booked and booked and booked and booked. If you don't believe me, here's just a couple of my clients and their results that they've had this week and this month. And this is from this month. That is the revenue they brought in this month for Rent2SAs. That's the money that Jack and Emily are generating. And they're not the only mentees that are doing these numbers. We've got quite a handful of mentees doing these sorts of numbers. My point is, the margins must work generously. Not just like scraping the barrel. They must work generously, otherwise it's not a sustainable, scalable business. So if your deal only works on the perfect occupancy, if you're going off of property market intel, for example, and it says the occupancy is going to be 75%, if that's what you base it on, then you're more than likely going to fail because you haven't backed it up with pure evidence. That's not a deal. That's called hope. So this business model is best suited for someone who wants control and not just sat comfortably in your home under your duvet. People that are consistently going to follow a structure as opposed to constantly renewing it or reinventing it. This is for people that are okay being uncomfortable at the start. So if I would say, here is your first property and here is you when you're completely brand new to this business model, it does not go like that. Not at all. You're going to come in, you're going to invest a bit of time and get no result. Then you're going to go on viewings, you're going to make offers, then they're going to get rejected. And then you literally repeat that process. Then you're going to hit a low because you start to doubt the training, you start to doubt yourself because you've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 offers and they've all been rejected and you're getting tired. It's been 6 weeks, you're getting fed up, you're seeing everybody else make it look easy online, and then you have a word with me or my mindset coach, and then you're motivated again, and then reset back to baseline, then you might plummet again, and then you get another viewing and it goes really well, and then you're straight back on it, boom, first property. And it might feel inconsistent to you because you've had, that is what I call the emotional roller coaster. But if you look at it from what I said earlier, it's not that, and I deleted it. When you look at it now, it actually is. So you just got to be consistent across time. Is time in the market, as well as doing the right actions consistently, is where you would get your first deal. Some people have got their first deal in 2 phone calls. Some people got their first deal in 10, 11 days. It does happen. But for me, it took 83 days. But then I was profiting 2,400. That was my journey. That is exactly how my journey went. I believed in the process. I just went through the motions. and got all the rejections under my belt until someone said yes. So that is the process you need to accept to get your first deal. That's why I say you need to be uncomfortable at the start, because that is the process. So that's why I say if you want passive income with no responsibility, then the process will annoy you. You can't dip your toe in this game. You can't dabble. You have to go all in consistently. You can have a few days off as long as you're working on something. Work on your mindset, read books, listen to podcasts, watch podcasts. Do what you need to do to get back on your game. And here's what I see a lot of people are doing. They invest wisely. They go to the larger training schools because they're promised the absolute world. If you follow our training, you will succeed. Our success rate is 99%. But then you join, and you joined along with hundreds, if not thousands of other people, and then you just put in a group chat, and the group chat is going off and you can't keep up. You ask a question, it gets lost. You have to scroll up just to see your question is left unanswered, or it's answered and someone says this is in the training, and then you go and try and book a mentoring call and it's not for a few days later, right? Or the whole week is booked up. Don't forget you're being coached along with hundreds of other people. So then you start to hesitate, you stall, and the only reason behind it is because no one's holding you accountable. You were told they would be. So it's not that you don't know what to do. You know what to do. You just need that confirmation from your mentor. There's no pressure, there's no feedback. You don't feel valued because there's so many other people. No one would notice if you just disappeared. So what people tend to do is go into preparation mode, tweak their website to perfection, share that on social media, and then people comment on it and they feel better. That is not taking action. That's procrastination at its finest. You do not need the perfect website. Mine was awful. Mine was so bad. I just quickly chucked it together. Just treat it like a tick box exercise. Get it live. You have to be on the phones. You have to be on viewings. You have to be negotiating, making offers, to go through that process. So if you already believe in this strategy and the business model and you know it works but you're still stuck, then the issue is not in the lack of information. It's following through with that information with strategy and implementation to know exactly what to do next. Or if you make a mistake, get feedback immediately so you can get straight back on it doing the correct thing. It's having that accountability and the pressure to move. So if I was starting again today, here is exactly what I would do. I would follow one course, one strategy. If you haven't read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, I can remember that as clear as yesterday. What did I do yesterday? But in that book he says focus means follow one course until successful. So choose one strategy, forget everything else. You do not need to master every single strategy when you haven't even mastered one. Go all in on one strategy. Next, I would get all of my deals, everything I'm doing, get it reviewed, get it confirmed you're doing the right thing so you can go to town on it. Get all of your deals reviewed and thumbs up, green light before committing anything. And then thirdly, I would put myself in an environment where stalling or procrastinating or dwelling was absolutely no option. Someone would call me out. If I go quiet, you get noticed. You know, where's Kenny at? Not seen anything from Kenny in 5 days. Kenny, where you at? And they tag you. You have to move fast in this game. You have to move fast. That's vital. Speed is everything in business. And speed comes from getting things wrong and then correcting them. So that is where confidence comes from. So hopefully that all made sense. This video was not to convince you on anything. It was to tell you exactly how this business works so you can be honest with yourself. You may have realized that the strategy isn't the issue. It's doing it alone is what has kept you stuck. So if that is the case, you already know what to do next.